Military recruits mock a petite Asian woman in boot camp, calling her a porcelain doll and a princess, only to discover she hides one of the most decorated combat stories in military history. Sarah Chen endured weeks of harassment from larger, stronger recruits who assumed her small stature made her weak, until a combat training session forced her to remove her top, revealing an intricate back tattoo that told an impossible story. The detailed military artwork documented emblems from elite special forces units, Purple Hearts from combat wounds, and campaign badges from covert operations most soldiers had never heard of. When the company commander saw Sarah's tattoos, she immediately called the Pentagon, uncovering a secret experimental program that would change military leadership training forever. Sarah Chen stood in formation at Fort Benning's reception station, her petite 5 feet 2 inches frame dwarfed by the towering recruits surrounding her as Drill Sergeant Martinez paced in front of the fresh batch of Army hopefuls who had just stepped off the bus into the Georgia heat. "Listen up, maggots," Martinez bellowed, his voice cutting through the humid air like a blade. "You think you're tough enough for my army? You think you got what it takes to earn the title of United States soldier?" His eyes swept across the formation with practiced disdain, lingering on Sarah with obvious skepticism as he took in her delicate features and slight build that seemed more suited for a college classroom than military training. "What's your name, princess?" Martinez demanded, stopping directly in front of Sarah, his imposing 6 feet 4 inches frame casting a shadow over her as the other recruits snickered at what they assumed would be easy entertainment at her expense. "Private Chen, Drill Sergeant," Sarah responded with crisp military bearing that surprised everyone within earshot, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to contradict her youthful appearance and small stature. Well, Private Chen thinks she's ready to play soldier," Martinez continued his verbal assault. "Tell me, sweetheart, what makes you think you can handle what we're about to put you through? Did Daddy not hug you enough, or are you just here to prove some feminist point?" The cruel laughter from her fellow recruits echoed across the formation as they assumed Sarah would crumble under the pressure that had already begun to break weaker candidates who hadn't even made it through the first day. "I'm here to serve my country, Drill Sergeant, same as everyone else," Sarah replied without flinching, her steady gaze meeting Martinez's intimidation tactics with calm resolve that caught him off guard despite his years of experience breaking down civilian attitudes and rebuilding military mindsets. "We'll see about that, Chen," Martinez growled, sensing something different about this recruit but unable to pinpoint what made her different from the typical college graduate who thought military service would be an adventure rather than the brutal transformation it actually required. The mockery intensified during their first week of basic training as Sarah's fellow recruits, led by the unofficial leader Jake Morrison, a former high school football star from Texas, made her the target of constant harassment designed to drive her out of the program before she could embarrass herself and them with her inevitable failure. "Hey China doll, need help carrying that pack?" Morrison taunted as Sarah struggled with the standard issue equipment that weighed nearly half her body weight, his comment drawing snickers from the group of male recruits who had bonded over their shared assumption that women didn't belong in combat roles. "I can manage just fine, thank you," Sarah replied through gritted teeth, adjusting her gear with determination that refused to acknowledge the physical disadvantage she faced in almost every training exercise they encountered. "Sure you can, sweetheart," chimed in Tommy Rodriguez from Chicago, "just like you managed that obstacle course yesterday when you needed 3 tries to get over the wall that everyone else cleared on the first attempt." The constant commentary about her size, strength, and supposed inadequacy became background noise during meals, training exercises, and even in the barracks after lights out, as her squad mates seemed determined to break her spirit through psychological warfare. "My little sister could probably outrun you," Morrison continued during their morning PT formation. "And she's only in middle school, but at least she knows her limitations and doesn't pretend to be something she's not." Sarah absorbed each insult with stoic silence, channeling her energy into improvement rather than retaliation, a strategy that seemed to frustrate her tormentors who expected tears, anger, or resignation rather than quiet persistence. "Ignore them," whispered Jessica Williams, one of only 3 other women in their training company. "They're just scared that if you succeed, it proves they're not as special as they think they are." The insight provided some comfort, but Sarah knew that words of support wouldn't help her complete the physical challenges that seemed designed to expose every weakness she possessed. "Thanks, Jess, but I didn't come here to make friends or enemies," Sarah replied. "I came here to become a soldier, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, regardless of what anyone else thinks about it." The breaking point came during their third week of training when the company was introduced to combatives training, hand-to-hand combat instruction that would separate the mentally tough from those who couldn't handle the reality of close-quarters fighting that soldiers might face in actual combat situations. "All right, maggots, time to see who's got warrior spirit and who's just playing dress-up," Drill Sergeant Martinez announced as he demonstrated basic grappling techniques that would be tested through live sparring matches between recruits of similar size and experience levels. "Chen, you're up first," Martinez called out with a predatory grin. "Let's see how tough our little warrior princess really is when someone's trying to choke her out." The obvious setup became clear when Martinez paired Sarah with Morrison, who outweighed her by 70 pounds and had wrestled in high school, creating a mismatch that seemed designed to humiliate rather than educate. "This is gonna be embarrassing," Morrison muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'll try to go easy on you, Chen, but accidents happen in combat training." His condescending tone masked genuine concern about seriously injuring someone so much smaller than himself, but peer pressure and masculine pride prevented him from refusing the obviously unfair matchup. "Just do your job, Morrison," Sarah replied calmly, removing her uniform top to reveal the standard-issue tank top underneath. "And don't worry about me, I can take care of myself." The collective gasp that went up from the watching recruits had nothing to do with her small frame or feminine appearance, and everything to do with what was revealed across her back and shoulders when she turned around. "Holy shit," someone whispered in the stunned silence that followed. "Do you see what's on her back?" The intricate tattoo that covered Sarah's upper back wasn't decorative artwork or personal expression. It was a detailed reproduction of military unit insignia, campaign ribbons, and combat decorations that told a story none of them had expected from the quiet recruit they had been tormenting for weeks. The tattoo that adorned Sarah's back was a masterpiece of military artistry that documented a combat history more extensive than most career soldiers ever accumulated, featuring unit patches from elite special operations forces, campaign medals from multiple overseas deployments, and specialized insignia that indicated training and experience far beyond what any basic training recruit should possess. "Is that a Ranger tab?" Jessica whispered in amazement, recognizing the distinctive black and yellow insignia that represented completion of one of the Army's most challenging leadership courses. "And look at those deployment ribbons: Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. How many tours has she done?" The artwork continued down her shoulders and arms, revealing additional qualification badges for airborne, air assault, and specialized schools that required years of military service to even attempt, much less complete successfully. "That's a Purple Heart," Morrison said in a hushed voice. His earlier bravado completely evaporated as he realized he had been mocking someone who had been wounded in actual combat while he was still playing high school football. "And that Bronze Star? You only get that for heroism in combat operations. What the hell is she doing in basic training?" The question that hung in the air reflected everyone's confusion about why someone with obvious military experience would be going through initial entry training with complete novices who had never worn a uniform before arriving at Fort Benning. Maybe she's prior service from another branch? Rodriguez suggested, but the Army insignia mixed with Navy and Air Force decorations suggested something far more complex than a simple branch transfer. "Those aren't regular military tattoos," observed Williams, who had grown up in a military family and recognized details that escaped the other recruits. "Some of those units don't officially exist, and that ribbon configuration suggests classified operations that most soldiers never hear about." The implications of Sarah's revealed history began to sink in as the recruits realized they had been harassing someone whose military experience exceeded that of most of their drill sergeants. Drill Sergeant Martinez stared at Sarah's back in stunned silence, his years of military experience allowing him to read the story told by her tattoos with growing amazement and concern about what this recruit's presence might mean for his training program. "Chen, front and center now." Martinez barked, his voice carrying a different tone than the routine harassment he had been delivering for weeks, replaced by the serious authority reserved for situations that required immediate clarification. "Where did you get those tattoos, and what's your real story?" he demanded, though his question was delivered with the respect typically reserved for fellow professionals rather than the condescension used on civilian recruits. "They're accurate representations of my service record, Drill Sergeant," Sarah replied with military precision, her bearing transforming from defensive recruit to confident soldier as she faced Martinez's direct questioning. "And my story is that I'm here to complete basic training and continue my service to this country, same as everyone else in this formation." Her response was technically correct but obviously incomplete, leaving Martinez with more questions than answers about why someone with her apparent background would be starting over with civilian recruits. "That's not what I asked, Chen," Martinez pressed. "Those decorations represent years of specialized service, multiple combat deployments, and training that takes most soldiers decades to accumulate. You're either the most accomplished 20-year-old in military history, or there's something about your situation that I need to understand before we continue this training exercise." The standoff between drill sergeant and recruit created tension that the watching soldiers could feel, as everyone realized they were witnessing something far beyond the normal scope of basic training drama. "My service record is available through proper channels, drill sergeant," Sarah replied, maintaining perfect military bearing while deflecting his questions with bureaucratic precision. "But I'm currently assigned to this training company as a recruit, and I intend to complete the program according to regulations." Her stubborn adherence to protocol frustrated Martinez, who recognized that he was dealing with someone who understood military bureaucracy well enough to avoid answering questions she didn't want to address. The situation escalated quickly when Drill Sergeant Martinez realized he was dealing with something beyond his authority level and immediately called for Captain Rebecca Thompson, the company commander who had been observing training from a distance but now approached with obvious concern about the disruption to normal operations. "What's the situation here, Sergeant Martinez?" Captain Thompson inquired as she surveyed the frozen formation and the obvious tension surrounding Sarah, who remained at attention despite the unusual circumstances. "Ma'am, we have a recruit whose tattoos suggest military experience that doesn't match her status as a basic training candidate," Martinez explained. "And I think this situation requires command attention before we proceed with combat training." Thompson's experienced eye immediately recognized the significance of what she was seeing when Sarah turned around, her own military background allowing her to read the detailed story documented across Sarah's skin. "Dear God," Thompson whispered as she identified unit insignia from classified Special Operations Forces. "Sergeant Martinez, clear the area immediately. Everyone else, return to your previous training activities while I sort this out." The command to disperse the gathering crowd reflected Thompson's recognition that they were dealing with information that might be sensitive or classified beyond the clearance level of basic training recruits. "Chen, you're with me," Thompson ordered. "We need to have a conversation about your background and what you're doing in my training company." Sarah followed the captain toward the company headquarters with the same calm demeanor she had maintained throughout the confrontation, her military bearing now fully evident as she moved with the confidence of someone comfortable in command environments. "Ma'am, may I ask if there's a problem with my training performance?" Sarah inquired as they walked, her question designed to redirect the conversation toward official matters rather than personal history. "Your training performance isn't the issue, Chen," Thompson replied. "The issue is that I have a recruit in basic training who appears to have more combat experience than most of my drill sergeants, and I need to understand how that situation developed." Captain Thompson's investigation into Sarah's background revealed a personnel file that was heavily redacted and marked with security classifications that required clearances far above her level as a basic training company commander. "This is highly irregular," Thompson muttered as she reviewed the limited information available through standard military personnel systems, finding references to special assignments, classified operations, and training programs that didn't appear in normal service records. "Chen, your file indicates prior service, but the details are restricted beyond my access level," Thompson explained as she faced Sarah across her office desk, "which means I need you to voluntarily explain what brought you to basic training when you obviously don't belong here with civilian recruits." Sarah maintained her professional demeanor while considering how much information she could safely share without violating security protocols that governed her previous assignments and current status. "Ma'am, I can confirm that I have prior military experience, but the specifics are classified and not relevant to my current training assignment," Sarah replied carefully. "I'm here because I've been directed to complete basic training as part of a new assignment that requires this credential." Her explanation was truthful but incomplete, leaving Thompson with the frustrating sense that she was dealing with bureaucratic complexities beyond her understanding or control. "This doesn't make sense," Thompson pressed. "Someone with your apparent background doesn't need basic training. You could probably teach half the courses we offer here. Why would anyone order you to start over with civilian recruits?" The question touched on military logic that seemed absent from Sarah's situation, but also reflected Thompson's growing respect for a subordinate who had clearly earned achievements that exceeded her own military experience. Sometimes military assignments don't follow conventional logic, ma'am, Sarah replied with a slight smile that suggested she understood Thompson's frustration. But my orders are clear, and I intend to follow them regardless of how unusual they might seem. The response demonstrated Sarah's understanding of military culture while maintaining the boundaries that her situation apparently required. The phone call that Captain Thompson made to higher headquarters revealed that Sarah's assignment to basic training was part of a classified program that Thompson wasn't authorized to know about, but which required her full cooperation without asking further questions about the recruit's background or purpose. "Yes, sir, I understand," Thompson said into the phone, her voice reflecting frustration with instructions that prevented her from understanding the situation she was being asked to manage. "But this recruit is creating disruption in my training environment, and my drill sergeants need to know how to handle someone with her apparent background." The conversation that followed involved multiple transfers to higher-ranking officers who provided increasingly vague instructions about treating Sarah like any other recruit while avoiding questions about her history or qualifications. "This is coming from the Pentagon level," Thompson explained to Sarah after ending her calls, "and I've been instructed to continue your training without special accommodation or recognition of your previous service. You'll be treated exactly like every other recruit in this company." Sarah nodded with understanding that reflected familiarity with bureaucratic decisions that prioritized mission requirements over individual convenience or logical personnel management. "I appreciate your discretion, ma'am," Sarah replied, "and I want to assure you that I have no intention of disrupting your training program or using my background to avoid any requirements that other recruits must complete." Her commitment to completing training on equal terms despite her obvious overqualification demonstrated professionalism that impressed Thompson even as it frustrated her curiosity about Sarah's real story. "There's one condition," Thompson continued. "Your tattoos are creating distraction and raising questions that I can't answer. You'll need to keep them covered during all training activities to avoid further incidents like what happened today." The practical solution addressed the immediate problem while acknowledging the reality that Sarah's decorated military history couldn't be ignored or explained within the constraints of basic training operations. The revelation of Sarah's hidden military background transformed the dynamic within her training company as word spread through unofficial channels about the recruit who possessed combat experience that exceeded most career soldiers despite her youthful appearance and recent arrival. "I heard she was Special Forces," whispered one recruit during evening chow, "and that some of those unit patches on her back are from classified operations that most people never hear about." The speculation that followed ranged from wild conspiracy theories to more reasonable assumptions about prior service, but all of it reflected newfound respect for someone they had been mocking just days earlier. "Morrison's been real quiet since that combatives demonstration," Rodriguez observed. "Probably realized he was talking shit to someone who could have killed him with her bare hands if she wanted to." The shift in attitudes wasn't universal, as some recruits felt embarrassed about their earlier behavior while others resented being deceived about Sarah's background and qualifications. "She should have told us from the beginning," complained Williams, "instead of letting us make fools of ourselves by treating her like a weak civilian who didn't belong here." The criticism reflected a common reaction to feeling manipulated, even though Sarah had never claimed to be inexperienced or asked for special treatment based on her background. "Maybe she couldn't tell us," suggested another recruit. "If her previous assignments were classified, she might not be allowed to talk about them even if she wanted to." The more thoughtful analysis recognized that military personnel often couldn't discuss their service history due to security requirements rather than personal choice or deception. "Either way, she earned respect the hard way," Morrison finally admitted, "by proving herself in training instead of trading on her reputation or demanding special treatment because of what she'd done before." His acknowledgement represented a mature recognition that Sarah's approach to basic training demonstrated integrity and commitment regardless of her hidden qualifications. The classified briefing that Captain Thompson received 2 weeks later revealed that Sarah's assignment to basic training was part of an experimental program designed to test new approaches to military leadership development and integration of experienced personnel into conventional training environments. Operation Fresh Start is evaluating whether experienced special operations personnel can benefit from returning to basic training environments to develop conventional military leadership skills, explained Colonel James Harrison during a secure video conference that finally provided Thompson with context for Sarah's unusual situation. Private Chen volunteered for this assignment after completing multiple classified deployments, and her performance in your program is being monitored at the highest levels of military leadership. The explanation clarified why someone with Sarah's background would willingly submit to basic training requirements that were clearly beneath her demonstrated capabilities and experience level. The program is designed to test whether elite personnel can transition effectively into conventional leadership roles without the attitude problems that sometimes develop among special operations veterans, Colonel Harrison continued. And Private Chen's ability to complete basic training without revealing her background or seeking special treatment is considered a crucial measure of her suitability for future command positions. Thompson began to understand that Sarah's presence in her company was less about training and more about assessment, with implications that extended far beyond the individual recruit to encompass broader questions about military leadership development. Your role is to observe and report on her performance, integration with other recruits, and leadership potential as demonstrated through standard basic training scenarios, Harrison instructed. But under no circumstances should you reveal this information to anyone else in your command structure. The directive placed Thompson in the difficult position of evaluating someone whose true capabilities far exceeded the training environment while maintaining the fiction that Sarah was just another civilian recruit learning military basics. The psychological evaluation that was secretly conducted by military psychiatrists revealed that Sarah's motivation for accepting the experimental assignment was connected to her desire to understand and connect with conventional soldiers after years of operating in elite units that were isolated from regular military culture. Subject demonstrates exceptional emotional intelligence and genuine interest in understanding the experience of typical military personnel, noted Dr. Maria Santos in her confidential assessment. Her willingness to endure harassment and physical challenges that are routine for her demonstrates commitment to the experimental program rather than career advancement or personal recognition. The analysis suggested that Sarah's participation in Operation Fresh Start was motivated by service rather than ambition, reflecting a mature understanding of military culture that recognized the value of shared experience in developing effective leadership. Her ability to maintain cover while performing at expected levels rather than demonstrating superior capabilities shows remarkable self-discipline and mission focus, Dr. Santos continued. And her interaction with other recruits suggests genuine empathy for their struggles rather than condescension based on her advanced training and experience. The psychological profile painted a picture of someone who possessed both exceptional military skills and the emotional maturity required for senior leadership positions that required understanding of personnel at all levels of military service. Recommendation is for continued monitoring and advancement to Phase 2 of the experimental program upon completion of basic training, Dr. Santos concluded. Subject has demonstrated the ability to adapt to conventional military environments while maintaining operational security and mission discipline. The positive evaluation reflected Sarah's successful navigation of the complex requirements that the experimental program was designed to test, validating the concept that elite personnel could benefit from exposure to conventional military training environments. The final weeks of basic training saw Sarah emerge as an unofficial leader among her fellow recruits, not through revelation of her background but through consistent demonstration of military values and genuine concern for the success of everyone in her training company. Chen always has time to help other people improve their performance, observed Drill Sergeant Martinez in his evaluation report. And she does it in ways that teach skills rather than just solving immediate problems. Her approach to peer leadership reflected military experience while remaining appropriate for her supposed status as a basic training recruit. She helped me figure out why I was failing the rifle range, Morrison admitted during a conversation with other recruits. Not by shooting for me, but by showing me how to adjust my stance and breathing technique. Now I'm qualifying just like everyone else. The testimonial reflected Sarah's ability to share knowledge without revealing the source of her expertise, maintaining her cover while contributing to unit cohesion and performance. There's something different about the way she carries herself, Williams observed. Like she's calm and confident even when things get stressful, but not in an arrogant way. More like she knows everything will work out if we just do our jobs properly. The perception captured Sarah's military bearing without identifying its source, demonstrating her successful integration into the conventional training environment. She's the kind of person you want leading you in combat, Rodriguez concluded. Not because she acts tough or tries to intimidate anyone, but because you trust that she knows what she's doing and cares about keeping everyone safe. The respect she had earned from fellow recruits through performance rather than reputation validated the experimental program's premise that elite personnel could develop conventional leadership skills through shared basic training experiences. The graduation ceremony that concluded Sarah's basic training marked the successful completion of Phase 1 of Operation Fresh Start, with her performance metrics indicating exceptional success in meeting both stated and classified objectives for the experimental program. Private Chen exemplified the highest standards of military bearing, physical fitness, and leadership potential throughout her training cycle. Captain Thompson announced during the ceremony, her words carrying double meaning for those who understood Sarah's real background and mission. She has earned the respect of her peers and instructors through consistent demonstration of military values and genuine commitment to excellence. The public recognition reflected Sarah's achievements within the constraints of her assigned role while acknowledging her contributions to unit morale and performance. Her graduation marks not just individual success, but validation of our training program's ability to develop leaders who understand that military service requires both personal excellence and commitment to the success of everyone in the unit, Thompson continued, her remarks designed to highlight Sarah's leadership approach without revealing the experimental nature of her assignment. The ceremony that followed was identical to hundreds of other basic training graduations, but for Sarah it represented successful completion of one of the most challenging assignments of her military career, proving herself worthy of trust and respect from conventional soldiers without relying on her previous achievements or specialized background. "Congratulations, soldier," Drill Sergeant Martinez said as he presented Sarah with her graduation certificate. "You've earned this through hard work and dedication, just like every other graduate in this formation." His words acknowledged her achievement while maintaining the fiction that had governed her entire training experience, reflecting the discipline and professionalism that had made Operation Fresh Start possible. The impact of Sarah's successful completion of basic training extended far beyond her individual achievement to influence the development of new military training and leadership programs that recognize the value of shared experience across different levels of military service. Operation Fresh Start has demonstrated that experienced personnel can benefit significantly from exposure to conventional training environments, Colonel Harrison reported to Pentagon leadership, and that such exposure can develop leadership capabilities that are difficult to achieve through advanced military education alone. The positive results led to expansion of the experimental program to include other elite personnel who were being considered for senior leadership positions that required understanding of conventional military culture and operations. Private Chen's performance validates our hypothesis that genuine leadership requires the ability to connect with personnel at all levels of military service, Harrison continued, and that such connection is best developed through shared experience rather than theoretical study or observation. The success of the program influenced broader discussions about military leadership development and the integration of special operations culture with conventional military values and practices. The program will be expanded to include selected personnel from all branches of military service, Harrison announced, with the goal of developing senior leaders who combine specialized expertise with understanding of conventional military operations and culture. The institutional changes that resulted from Sarah's successful completion of the experimental assignment represented validation of her sacrifice and commitment to advancing military leadership development beyond her own career advancement. The personal transformation that Sarah experienced during basic training provided her with insights about leadership and military service that her previous elite assignments had never offered, changing her perspective on the relationship between specialized and conventional military capabilities. "I learned more about leadership in 12 weeks of basic training than in years of special operations," Sarah reflected during her post-training interview, "because leadership isn't about being the most skilled or experienced person in the group. It's about helping everyone in the group achieve their potential and succeed in their mission." Her observation captured the essence of what Operation Fresh Start was designed to teach, validating the program's theoretical foundation through practical demonstration. "Working with civilian recruits who were struggling with basic military concepts taught me that effective leadership requires patience, empathy, and genuine concern for the development of subordinates," Sarah continued. "Qualities that are sometimes overlooked in elite units where everyone is already highly motivated and capable." The insight reflected her growing understanding of conventional military leadership challenges that differed significantly from the specialized requirements of her previous assignments. "The experience also taught me that respect must be earned through consistent performance and character rather than demanded based on rank or previous achievements," Sarah noted, "and that the most effective leaders are those who can inspire others to exceed their own expectations rather than simply giving orders and expecting compliance." The leadership philosophy that emerged from her basic training experience would guide her approach to future assignments and contribute to the development of training programs designed to create leaders who could operate effectively across different military environments. The long-term career implications of Sarah's successful completion of Operation Fresh Start opened doors to senior leadership positions that required both specialized expertise and conventional military leadership experience, creating new pathways for advancement that hadn't existed before the experimental program. Private Chen has been selected for accelerated promotion and assignment to a position that will utilize both her specialized background and her demonstrated ability to work effectively with conventional military personnel, Colonel Harrison announced during her final evaluation, representing the first successful graduate of a program that may reshape how we develop senior military leaders. The recognition represented validation of both Sarah's individual sacrifice and the broader experimental program's potential to improve military leadership development across all branches of service. Her assignment will involve training and leading conventional military units while maintaining her specialized capabilities, Harrison continued, creating a bridge between elite and conventional military cultures that has been missing from our leadership development programs. The hybrid role that Sarah would assume represented a new model for military leadership that combined specialized expertise with conventional leadership experience, potentially influencing how the military developed and utilized personnel with diverse backgrounds and capabilities. The success of Operation Fresh Start suggests that we need to reconsider our assumptions about leadership development and the relationship between specialized and conventional military service, Harrison observed. And Private Chen's example demonstrates that the most effective leaders may be those who understand and can operate successfully in multiple military environments. The institutional recognition of these principles represented a significant shift in military leadership philosophy that had been validated through Sarah's willingness to endure basic training despite her obvious overqualification for the program.